Good afternoon, and welcome to a rare daytime appearance from the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly. And what we're going to talk about right now, we're going to talk about today, is not new comics. Well, it is new comics, but comics that won't be coming out for a while. And that is, of course, the words that are on everybody's lips, every comic fan's lips, anyway, today. And that is Before Watchmen. Okay, so just breaking it down in the old-fashioned sense. Now, of course, you know Watchmen. You know what it is. You know it's the classic. It's the kind of gold standard. It's the only comic book to be revered on Time's greatest 100 novels of the 20th century. So, DC for a long time has been rumored to have this before, these Watchmen prequels in that they're working on them. But until last night, they hadn't been announced officially. Well, they have been announced now, and now everybody's talking about it, so I need to get my 2 cents in. So just, again, breaking it down from the most basic level, we're going to talk about the books themselves and the creators, and then we'll get to my actual opinions on it. Okay, so, for first off, and perhaps most importantly, is we're going to have a Rorschach mini that is going to be, it's written by Brian Azzarello, and the artist is going to be Lee Bermejo, who did the Batman Noel project. He's done a lot of covers over the years. I don't know if I've ever actually read a comic that he's done full art for. I haven't read Noel, so I don't know. I just kept seeing those little 6-page, little blurbs that were in of Noel that were in all the DC comics that had come out 2 months ago or whatever. There's going to be a 6-issue Minutemen series that's going to be writer-artist on that is going to be Darwin Cook. And there's going to be a 6-issue Comedians, Jesus Christ. A 6-issue mini on the Comedian, also written by Azzarello and art by J.G. Jones, who did the Unfortunate Final Crisis and also did the Remarkable Wanted, and has also really confined himself a lot to doing a lot of covers these days. We have Dr. Manhattan, who's going to be written by J. Michael Straczynski, who did Superman Earth 1, and also did, Thor and Amazing Spider-Man for a while. Anyway, and that's going to be drawn by Adam Hughes. Again, someone who has really, an amazing artist, but someone who's been relegated to doing just pretty much covers over the last couple of years. Night Owl, again, Straczynski writing that. That's going to be a 4-issue mini. And that's going to be done by Andy and Joe Kubert. So, son and father working on the same series. And then a 6-issue Ozymandias series written by Len Wein, I don't know how to pronounce it. And art by Jay Lee. And we're going to have a 4-issue Silk Spectre written by Darwin Cook and art by Amanda Connor, who has done, again, a lot of covers, did Power Girl. So, and then there's going to be a single issue epilogue, and then a backup, and each issue is going to have a backup, Curse of the Crimson Corsair. I'm assuming that has more things to do with, like, Tales from the Black Freighter. Or Tales of the Black Freighter, exactly how that's done. Now, this, to me, despite the fact that there's some really, really, okay, now there's, across the board, artistically, there's some fantastic talent working on this. Not across the board, you have, well, someone that I consider to be a really great writer, who is Darwin Cook. Someone I consider to be a kind of hit and miss, but, you know, kind of more hit with Brian Azzarello, because I love what he's been doing with, you know, I loved Batman Night of Vengeance, the Flashpoint tie-in. I love his work on Wonder Woman right now. And then you have Len Wein, who, honestly, I can't remember the last thing that I read by him. Might have been an issue of, like, Batman from the 70s or something like that. And then you also have J. Michael Straczynski, who is someone that I hate. I hate what he did with Spider-Man. He did some of the, you know, the worst issues of Spider-Man that I've ever read. And that's including some of the really awful 90s shit. Basically, the whole thing to me, it reeks of, this is basically the Phantom Menace. These are the Star Wars prequels. Okay? Don't mistake it and say, okay, well, these people are going to have great ideas and they're going to put forth great comics. No. It's, you know, so, okay, here's the thing. Here's where that comparison actually falls apart, though, is that it's George Lucas who did the prequels, and he actually created the original series. So if Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons decide to step in and do all of these various miniseries or whatever, then that would be something different. But it's not. Alan Moore is not involved in any way, shape, or form. And Straczynski, in his way, the way that he has, this is a quote from an interview that he did with the Hollywood Reporter in regards to this, is that Straczynski calls out Moore himself that he spent much of his career building on characters that he didn't create either, such as Swamp Thing, Batman, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Lost Girls. You know, these are all, you know, and even the characters in Watchmen themselves are based on the old Charlton Comics characters, like, you know, like Captain Atom and Blue Beetle, before they became DC characters. And so he asserts that that Moore loses a little bit of the high ground, as Straczynski says. Well, that's just, you know, to me, that's Straczynski in a nutshell. He's just acting the dick to act the dick. Moore has a legitimate claim on this work. Not because of it being based on characters like The Question and the, and, you know, like I said, like, you know, like Captain Atom or Blue Beetle, but that he took it upon himself to take these characters, create his own that had similarities, and then create the most complex, the most well, okay, maybe not the most groundbreaking, but certainly one of the most groundbreaking comics of all time. It's just, the whole thing just, it reeks of a kind of desperation for DC, because they realize that readership for comics is down, still down. You know, even back in the 90s when, you know, Marvel went bankrupt, for Christ's sake. And even though they had, you know, the biggest selling single issue of all time for X-Men #1, you know, over 1 million people bought that, or over 1 million copies were sold. You know, now they're still looking at, well, you know, Justice League #1 had like 300,000 issues sold. You know, and that's just, you know, it's not even, you know, it's not even a third of what X-Men #1 did back in the 90s. So again, it seems like DC just kind of, it almost honestly seems like they're just doing things now to piss Alan Moore off because they know that he's going to get, that he's going to come out against it and look like a crazy person like he sometimes does because he's an old, wacky anarchist, and magician. But to me, again, like I said, it's going to be, despite the talent involved, it's going to be very, episode 1, episode 2, it's going to be, it's going to be The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith all over again. Some of it is going to, which means that some of it's going to be absolute garbage, and some of it might be pretty decent. Will that mean I'll be picking up any of these issues? Probably no. And, I realize that by saying some of these things, it's been my dream to work in comics almost my whole life. And people are going to, if I do ever end up working in comics as a writer, or in whatever capacity, somebody out there is going to look at some of these videos and say, you know what, you said this about me this one time, and I don't like you. Or whatever. I don't really think that they're going to do that, but it's one of those things that I do every once in a while think about. It's like, wow, when I say, I really don't like this person, I don't like their writing, I don't like anything they have to say, like J. Michael Straczynski, but he's a superstar. He's a fucking star. Which I don't understand and never will. But, that's comics. That's just the way that things go. There's going to be certain people that you hate that for some reason are stars, and there are going to be some people that you love that you can't understand why they're not. So, but by and large, I'm not going to be getting any of these issues. I won't say, no, you shouldn't either. Because that's just hypocritical. Because I know that despite my most fondest wishes for myself, I know that I'm going to end up picking up at least 1 or 2 of these issues. At the very least. Just to see. In the way that I ended up still seeing Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, even after I knew, well, this is probably going to be garbage. Or if it's not garbage, it's certainly going to be something that upsets me. Because there's going to be things in it that I really, really don't like. And so it's just being at this kind of moral crossroads, if you will. Morally, I am firmly behind what both, kind of what Dave Gibbons said. He did say something to the effect of, well, if they want to do it, but, just kind of leave me out of it. And then, with Alan Moore saying, you know what, fuck you guys. Do whatever the hell you want. Make your money off of my name. And just, keep fucking me in the ass like you normally do, DC, because that's just what you continue to do throughout the decades. So, I don't know. So, with Before Watchmen, this is just, it's a terrible idea. It's a terrible thing to even start to do, because it's totally unnecessary. People were clamoring for the Star Wars prequels, so I understand that. People really wanted to see, okay, what happened before? But there was no outcry saying, I want to see what all these people were like. You got to see parts of what they were like in the original fucking series. So, just, I don't know, man, forget it. I just can't bother to get all worked up about this shit. But I'm going to, regardless. And that's my opinion. They're unnecessary. I wish they wouldn't do it, but they're going to do it, so that's it. I wish them luck, because they're going to need it. So anyway, that's me, James Donnelly for the Shadow Gallery, saying goodbye, good luck to DC, don't piss all over Watchmen too much. Okay? So, goodbye.